Hey, before we start the show, we know that many of you have long work days that are sometimes hard to get by. You can listen to music for a bit, but maybe it's getting a bit repetitive for you. Listen to stories, many of which are narrated by the actual authors through Audible. If you go to audibletrial.com/bytethat, you can get a 30-day free trial and a free audiobook of your choice. Many of them are over 6 hours long, so you can make time fly by while supporting Byte That and benefiting from a great service. That's audibletrial.com/bytethat. Byte Club, what's going on? Welcome to episode 211, a hurricane-level edition of the Byte That Wrestling Podcast. You can check out every Wednesday night on most podcast platforms, including at youtube.com/ByteThatCast. This is going to be a very special edition of the show, not just because Hurricane Irma is breaking hell in Puerto Rico right now, but because we are going to be doing an extended Superstar by Superstar review. That's right, we're going to take the roster specifically for Raw and SmackDown, go through every superstar, talk about how we feel they've been doing. You know, have they really lived up to the hype? Darren Young, that guy was supposed to be great again. Is he great again? Or the better question is, who's Darren Young? So if you like the podcast, you can drop a 5-star review on iTunes or Stitcher. That goes a long way to supporting us. My name is Juan Velas. I am, for what should hopefully still be after Wednesday night, from San Juan, Puerto Rico. And joining me, the man that doesn't have to worry. You ain't got to worry about no damn hurricanes. Nothing troublesome like that. You just got to worry about breakfast from Boston, Mass. Ryan McNulty, how you doing, buddy?
Yes, very fortunate that hurricanes very seldom hit here, and when they do, it's usually the remnants of, a bigger hurricane that happens somewhere else. So happy to be in a nice little location. Although I am traveling to New Orleans in a couple weeks, so. In the middle of hurricane season, maybe not the smartest plan, but hopefully things will be okay during that time.
Right now, of course, we just got over what happened in Texas, and people are still dealing with that. That's still going to be happening for month upon month. So everybody out there, whether you live in Texas or whether you have relatives, I hope that everybody is, well and safe. Tweet us, let us know that you're okay. We truly appreciate knowing that everybody's safe. And I'll keep you guys posted on our Twitter, Byte That Cast. I am going to be traveling. But before we go any further, we do want to give a lovely shout out to our gold patrons, including a brand new one who's DJ Threat, a longtime listener of the show, alongside Dominic Diaz, Ashley Hutson, and Nicole Tirado. You can get all the information over at patreon.com/ByteThatCast. So Ryan, this is a different kind of podcast because you guys are actually listening to me right now, but I'm not here. Okay, you may have a headache by listening to that. What I mean by that is that we're recording this
some
portion.
Deep philosophical talk.
Well, we gotta get to talking about some questionable people, but because hurricane's happening, I'm traveling. This first part's actually being recorded on a Monday, and then the roster review part is also being recorded on a Monday. So I'm on the show, but then I may disappear for a little bit because Ryan's going to be handling the review portion of Raw and SmackDown Live. So Ryan, before Raw and SmackDown actually happened, what would you rate them?
Both of them, I'm going to go the safe route and give them both a 2 out of 4 because I have no idea what to expect right now.
So if you hear Ryan's expression, his enthusiasm drop during the Raw and SmackDown Live review, just bear in mind that maybe they weren't that great of a show. So hopefully you guys enjoy the roster review. We are going to go one by one, but before that, let's officially take it over to Mr. McNulty now with the Raw and SmackDown Live review. So now I fade away.
Alrighty, going right into our Raw and SmackDown polls. Remember, you can vote on our polls that we put up at the end of Raw and SmackDown every single week over on twitter.com/ByteThatCast or at ByteThatCast. So jumping right into the polls for Raw this week, we had the majority voting a 3 out of 4. That's 47% saying the show was pretty good. and the second runner-up would be 23%, giving it a 2 out of 4, saying it was a decent show. We had a 17% for 4 out of 4 and 13% for 1 out of 4. For Monday Night Raw, I would say that is an exceptionally positive whole rating, with almost half coming in saying it was I think it was a pretty good show. Over on the SmackDown side, we had 52% giving it a 3 out of 4, also saying it was pretty good, and 19% saying it was a decent show. 15% for excellent, that's 4 out of 4, and 14% for not good. As far as polls go, I would say that these are quite positive reviews, and I would have to agree. I think both Raw and SmackDown they were both pretty good shows, and I think there was a lot to take away from each of them. So I'm going to highlight a few things about each show. So we're going to start with Raw. Now, we had another confrontation between John Cena and Roman Reigns. Of course, John Cena opened the show facing Jason Jordan in a pretty damn good match. But following this match, Roman Reigns came out, and there was another verbal sparring match, if you will. Now, it seemed like this was a more focused promo that I feel like was furthering the story better than last week's was, where I feel like last week's, although the fourth wall breaking shoot style is good every once in a while, I am glad that they didn't lean on that too much this week, and still making it personal, but not as in the business type of talk and all of that. So I thought this was a much better promo. Now, my little gripe, my bone to pick with this was that John Cena didn't attack or fight Reigns when he was provoked. Now, maybe my memory isn't so great these days, but if I can recall, John Cena seems to be always down to fight, never backs down from a challenge. When have you known John Cena to back down from anything? So this was quite surprising. And to me, this feels like almost kind of like a makeup call, where Roman Reigns ended up looking pretty bad last week because of some, just not being able to keep up with John Cena. So I feel like this was a scripted way to make John Cena look bad. And to me, it didn't seem like a great in-character way to make John Cena look bad. I always go on and on about characters and the importance of characters, and maybe some of you think I get on a little too much about characters, but it's really what keeps you interested in what's going on, and I think immersion is just is an overall lacking thing in WWE these days. And when John Cena just kind of backs down, when you've never seen him do that, and there's no story that's really told us that John Cena would want to. I mean, you could say, oh, they're trying to make John Cena seem afraid of Roman Reigns, but based on the way he positioned himself last week, and the way John Cena's been for the last decade, there's nothing that would tell me that he would suddenly want to back down from Roman Reigns. So when you have a character do something out of character just to serve a story purpose, I think that breaks the immersion, and that's a huge problem we see throughout WWE. So I really just didn't like that call. But other than that, it was very entertaining. This seems like a big deal. Going into No Mercy, it's getting its due. For a B-level pay-per-view, I think it's a smart idea to put a high-profile match like this. And so far, it's definitely delivering. I mean, when you think of John Cena versus Roman Reigns, you think that should be a big deal match. And so far, I think they've built it to have that feeling. Moving on to the Raw Women's Division, Emma is getting a chance. Kurt Angle essentially allowed an opportunity for both Nia Jax and Emma to get into a women's championship match at No Mercy. So they tagged up to face Sasha Banks and Alexa Bliss. And if Nia and Emma could win, they would be inserted into the match in a fatal 4-way bout. And that exactly happened. So this is a big surprise. I mean, last week we were talking how there may be no hope for Emma and all of this. And sure enough, she is getting an opportunity at the Raw Women's Championship. Do I think she has a chance of winning? No. Is she probably in there mainly to take a pin? There's a good chance of that. But you know what? If nothing else, she is getting more TV time and is actually becoming more a part of the show. So whether you want to get on her or not, I mean, I think I had little hope for her little campaign, the Give Emma a Chance campaign that she was running, because I think, she's going to get Zack Ryder, essentially. You know what? It's working for the time being, so I'm happy for her. I still think she really needs to find out who she is character-wise. This whole who started the women's revolution thing needs to go away. It's been talked about far too long. It doesn't matter who started it. It's, WWE has always been a what have you done for me lately type of business. So I don't think the audience gives a damn at this point who started the women's revolution. They care who's relevant in the women's division now. So even though her character seems a little off, she's certainly making herself more relevant. Now, I say the term over and over again, getting Zack Ryder. Zack Ryder had success for a little while before he was literally thrown off the stage. So are we seeing a similar pattern trending here? Possibly. But I would say the fanfare behind Emma is not nearly as strong as it was behind Zack Ryder. But I like Emma. I want to see her succeed. But I don't think this current incarnation is going to be the thing that launches her. Now, finally on Raw, the thing I want to talk about, Braun Strowman facing off against the Big Show inside a steel cage to main event Raw. I thought this was an excellent main event, but what I want to get to before the match itself is the fact that the promo Braun Strowman did just, I feel like, was a little too scripted. And, some of you may laugh, what WWE promo isn't heavily scripted? I think that they've been doing a very good job with Braun Strowman and how they have him talk up until this point. The backstage promo he had really felt like this is every other promo we've heard. Sure, you sprinkle in some monster among men, I'm going to destroy you type of stuff, but it just came off as, oh man, like he feels like every other person the way he's talking right now. Whereas before, I mean, we didn't need anything from Braun other than I'm not finished with you, and then beats the hell out of Roman Reigns, or just throwing Kalisto in a garbage can and saying one line. That's all we need from Braun Strowman. Don't have him sitting there looking like he's reading a cue card, because it takes away from that monster element. Short and sweet and destroy things. That is all we need from Braun Strowman. So I hope they don't lean too heavily on these scripted promos with Braun, because he doesn't need them. He needs 1 or 2 lines tops and destruction. That's all we need. So Braun gets another victory over the Big Show in an excellent main event. I mean, if you would have told me a year ago, should I be excited for Braun Strowman versus the Big Show? I would have told you hell no. But clearly these guys have a chemistry. Big Show is just fantastic at putting over young talent. He knows how to work with, working as a big guy, he knows what it takes for another big guy to succeed. And I think Big Show has done an excellent job at making Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman wouldn't be as much of a monster today if it wasn't for the work that Big Show has put in and helped him with. Big Show going for an elbow drop off the top rope. I mean, they pulled out all the stops. There was another, they did a superplex spot But they kept emphasizing how reinforced the ring was and all that, so we weren't going to do another ring collapse, and it wasn't necessary to do another one. But then after the match, after Braun gets the win, he throws Big Show to one of the sides of the cage, and it collapsed. I mean, the spot worked out perfectly and looked awesome, and obviously Big Show landed safely. Now, there are some rumors about Big Show having to get surgery, I believe hip surgery, and some are speculating this could be his last match. I would probably think not, but clearly Big Show, his days are certainly getting fewer and fewer for his wrestling career. If this is his last match, I think it's a perfectly fitting way to go out. A lot of people on Reddit had mentioned how the Big Show debuted at the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, interrupting a match that was a steel cage match. So wouldn't it be fitting for someone to take him out and his final match be a steel cage match? So certainly if this is the end for the Big Show in his WWE career, I think he has nothing left to prove, and this would be a very poetic way to go out. Going over to the SmackDown side, one thing I'd like to mention before I get to Shane McMahon, which was certainly the biggest topic coming out of SmackDown Live, which normally you'd think it should be the WWE title, but I think we can all be honest with ourselves and say Shane and Kevin Owens seems like the highest profile feud going right now. But JBL decided to walk away from the commentary team, and Corey Graves removed himself from 205 Live and is now doing double duty for both Raw and SmackDown. JBL in his this was I can't remember if this is his second or third run at commentary, but when he came back around 2012, 2013, I thought JBL started out really good, but his kind of quality of commentary had certainly dipped, and at certain points was reduced to just mindless shouting. So this is really going to be a breath of fresh air. Corey Graves, what else needs to be said other than he's excellent, and I think the fact that he's being trusted to be on commentary for both Raw and SmackDown just speaks to how great Corey Graves is at what he does. So a welcomed addition to the SmackDown commentary team. So Shane McMahon and Kevin Owens had a pretty big verbal sparring promo at the top of the show. Kevin Owens, I think, is just hitting it out of the park right now. I love that he came out and tried to pull the referee business again, trying to referee Carmella and Natalia's match, and then Shane McMahon comes out to stop him. Kevin Owens, man. Kevin Owens just goes savage as hell, getting super personal with Shane, talking about his family, bringing up the helicopter crash, saying that he wishes Shane would have died in the helicopter crash, like his family would have been better off. Kevin Owens mentions Shane's kids within this promo, and Shane had warned him about that, and of course that's what set Shane off. So Shane starts beating the living hell out of Kevin Owens. They're fighting on the announce table, and the intensity was really felt. I think it was very authentic, and playing off of real life emotions was a big thing in getting people to buy into this, and everyone was into it, and I loved it. It was a great way to start things off. Of course, that brings up the complication storyline-wise that, hey, Shane McMahon as commissioner shouldn't be laying his hands on talent, shouldn't be getting physical with talent. So Kevin Owens wants to sue Shane McMahon. Kevin Owens kind of taking that petty route, very fitting of his character. I thought that was great. Daniel Bryan's obviously worried about this, and we get Daniel Bryan on the phone with, we assume, Vince McMahon or some, I think he said chairman of the board or whatever. And of course, this later on forces Daniel Bryan to suspend Shane McMahon indefinitely. and also that Vince McMahon will be appearing on SmackDown next week. So it seems like they're really ramping up SmackDown. They advertised that they were also going to have AJ Styles versus Ty Dillinger in a US Open Challenge next week. I believe the New Day and the Usos are going to fight for the tag titles. And Natalya and Naomi are going to have a SmackDown Women's title rematch. So they are really trying to go all out for SmackDown Live next week. And it's interesting because obviously the NFL season is starting this week, it's starting Thursday, and that means the first Monday Night Football is going to be, this coming Monday, and they're ramping up SmackDown instead. So it makes me think, are they throwing in the towel for Raw and just hoping everybody tunes into SmackDown? It's very interesting, their strategy. They're certainly trying something different, and I hope it works out for them. It's just a little odd. You'd think you want to really ramp up Raw because that's the one that's actually going to be having the stiffest competition. But I mean, maybe they just want to they want to take advantage of SmackDown Live this year, try something different. We'll see how it goes. But obviously, this is another wrinkle in the Kevin Owens Shane McMahon feud. I'm excited to see where it goes. I mean, we're heading towards Hell in a Cell for SmackDown. Shane McMahon, pay-per-view called Hell in a Cell. You do the math. What do you think's going to happen? I think it's going to be awesome. So the match that ended up having to be postponed because of this Kevin Owens Shane McMahon deal was Carmella. So Carmella fought Natalya, and James Ellsworth ends up costing her the match by trying to have her cash in for some reason. I don't know what James Ellsworth is thinking. Anyway, following Carmella's loss, she gets pissed off. She starts talking trash about Ellsworth and then breaks up with Ellsworth. And I was a little sad. I've really been a fan of this. I've been a fan of this pairing, and it's like, what is James Ellsworth gonna do if he's not with Carmella? And I'm a little afraid of what he would have to do because they haven't really transitioned him into anything else yet. And I think he does such a good job in his role. But just when we think it's over, there's a backstage segment later on where Ellsworth is begging to have, for Carmella to take him back. And she says something along the lines of, we're going to do things my way, and then kisses him. So I don't know how Big Cass is going to feel about that. Sure, he's none too happy. But I'm a little confused about what's going on. Is this going to turn into a real relationship now? It really kind of doesn't. I don't know how much that makes sense. But I'm intrigued at the very least. Did not expect that to happen at all. And hey, you never know. Maybe James Ellsworth got himself out of the friend zone. Some didn't think it was a possible task to do, but that might give some hope to people out there. Hey, never over, man. You could get out of that friend zone. Finally, the last thing I want to cover regarding SmackDown Live. We had Randy Orton facing off against Shinsuke Nakamura to find out who would be challenging WWE Champion Jinder Mahal at Hell in a Cell. Now, as far as I know, they have not declared whether the winner of this match would actually be in a Hell in a Cell match. That still remains up in the air. I'm thinking it is likely that there will be a Hell in a Cell match. So anyway, Orton and Nakamura face off, and I thought this was an excellent match. You think about a lot of Randy Orton matchups, and sometimes they don't live up to the hype. I thought this was an extremely strong matchup between these two individuals, and the right person won. Nakamura got the win and is going to be facing off against Jinder Mahal at Hell in a Cell. So I'm expecting it to be a Hell in a Cell match. If they're pulling out the Punjabi prison, I think they're going to be pulling out all the gimmick stuff for Jinder Mahal. It's going to be kind of surprising that they're going to have Nakamura potentially lose a second pay-per-view match, but I think it's a very likely scenario. I mean, let's think about these Jinder Mahal matches. We saw the Punjabi prison match. What do you think's going to happen at the Hell in a Cell match? I don't know. Cage breaks open. Singh brothers interfere. Khalas. 1, 2, 3. It's probably going to happen, folks. The Jinder Mahal main event formula has been in full effect. So it's probably going to happen again. But hey, let's hope for a good match along the way. And maybe we'll be surprised by something else. Maybe a different outcome could be possible after all. But I would have liked to see somebody else face Jinder Mahal just because I don't want to see Nakamura this early on continually losing at pay-per-views. I mean, it's never a bad thing to be involved in the WWE title scene, but Nakamura, for a guy who they're really trying to build up, if they want to really have him lose that much so soon, that's a little bit concerning, but I would definitely prefer Nakamura over Randy Orton. I think we've all had our fill of Randy Orton versus Jinder Mahal, and I think we'd all be happy if we never saw it again in the history of everything. So at least the right guy won this particular match, but I was hoping for a different opponent. Nevertheless, though, Nakamura versus Jinder Mahal for the WWE title at Hell in a Cell is happening. But there's a ton to look forward to for SmackDown Live next week. I'm really interested to see the approach Shane McMahon. They go with the Shane McMahon Kevin Owens feud. Vince McMahon, he could be the one to make the match to kind of end the controversy. He'll probably be the one to make that Hell in a Cell match. But that's gonna do it for coverage of Raw and SmackDown this week, so we're gonna move on over to the roster review.
I'm back, Ryan. I'm back. Nice reviews, man.
Thank you, man.
I really
put a
liked,
lot of effort into those.
I really liked how you talked about the opening segment of Raw in that way. I really appreciated that. What was your favorite part of Raw?
My favorite part was the one that I said in the review.
Right, that
was good, and I liked it.
Ryan watched Raw, and he liked it. So, terrible singing aside, what's going to be happening now? We're gonna get ready, folks. Get the popcorn, get the coffee.
Buckle up.
Yes, because we are going to do a full, in-depth roster review for WWE. What's going to be happening is, I got the website here, WWE.com for those who don't know. I heard they have content there. And I have with me the entire Raw and SmackDown live roster. We're going to go one by one, talk about that superstar. How do we feel about them based on what they've been performing this year? Did they live up to the hype? Maybe they fell short. How has WWE been treating them? How are the backstage politics going into play here? Any other ground rules you think we should get to?
Yeah, I think it's more just we're going to look at where they are now and where we see them maybe in a year. So just kind of the state of the WWE roster is what we're aiming to do. And don't worry, we're going to try and be as rapid fire as we can because we know that there's a lot of names to get through. So, we'll put the correct amount of time into each person we feel is necessary.
So Apollo Crews, Bo Dallas, you guys may only get like 20 seconds. But how do you want to go about this? Do we want to go full roster or Raw and then SmackDown? How should we go about it?
Let's go Raw and SmackDown.
Let's go for it. So I'm just loading up here the Raw roster on the website. So keep in mind, Raw does include 205 Live, so I guess, we'll also lump that up. In my case, I have been watching 205 Live, so I can talk a little bit about that. So first up, we have the power of Tozawa, Akira Tozawa. That rhymed. I like that. What's your take on not just Akira Tozawa based on what you've seen on Raw, but really, even though you don't watch 205 Live, the perception of what is 205 Live?
Well, obviously 205 Live is kind of in a tough position of the main roster can do, a lot of the main event guys can do what you see on 205 Live. So cruiserweights aren't as special as they were in the early to mid 2000s. That being said, a lot of people have a lot of high praise for 205 Live. Akira Tozawa specifically, I think, is definitely one of the success stories of 205 Live. I think him being paired with Titus O'Neil has done a lot for him, and I think a lot of people were happy to see him get that cruiserweight title win, even if it was really brief. So for the 205 Live guys, when we say, hey, where do we see them in a year? It's going to be really tough because who knows if 205 Live is going to be around in a year? Not because the quality of the show is bad, but I just think the interest, unfortunately, isn't there for it. So I don't know what's going to the fate of some of the cruiserweights, but assuming in a year 205 Live is gone, I think Akira Tozawa would be actually one of the people that WWE would keep on board because I think he has a lot of value.
I agree. Akira Tozawa was somebody that, going back to the Cruiserweight Classic, I thought he was cool. I was not a fan of the stalling German suplex just because in an era where you saw so many suplexes with Brock Lesnar, it just seemed like a sharp contrast. But ever since he moved on to 205 Live and, he's been showcased on Raw, he's had Titus O'Neil changed to then, instead of a stalling suplex, a snap German suplex. He's developed into quite a superstar. I mean, the fact that his finishing maneuver is just a cannonball, really, if you think about it. He's just grabbing himself, doing a senton splash off the top rope. But between that, the catchphrases, he's got a lot of potential. The thing is, the ceiling, there is no ceiling from the looks of it in 205 Live. It's just, well, you get to have really good matches, and then maybe you get the title. Well, there is a literal ceiling in the buildings that they're at, unless they wrestle at a baseball stadium, in which case, well, the sky's the limit. So maybe 205 Live should just go the GFW route, and then we're all going to be okay. And with that, we now switch.
I don't think going the GFW route makes anything okay.
Let's take it over to the current Raw Women's Champion. Now, keep in mind, we're recorded before Raw, and with this championship, anything can happen. We're going to be talking about Alexa Bliss, who just last week recaptured a championship when she defeated Sasha Banks with that badass DDT. What do you think about Bliss Fit herself, man?
Well, Alexa Bliss certainly is a big success story out of the women's division and the most successful woman to come out of sort of that second NXT class, if you were counting it would even technically be the third. If Paige and Emma were really the first women's NXT class, then this is sort of the third. Basically the women's draft class. She's certainly been someone who's kind of came out of nowhere. She didn't have, no one was really expecting huge things from her coming to the main roster, but she ended up, surpassing, you could say she surpassed Becky Lynch and Bayley at this point, and really is only kind of rivaling Sasha Banks and Charlotte. So certainly Alexa Bliss is looking really, really strong right now, currently in the women's division. And I honestly project that, within a year, she's going to be doing just as well. She'll probably capture another women's championship, depending if she moves to back to SmackDown again or not. But I see, the train's going to keep rolling with Alexa Bliss.
Agreed. I think that Alexa, kind of like I mentioned in last week's podcast episode, she had a lot of potential, but because she wasn't part of that initial bunch that got called up, people saw her as the possible failure out of the potential NXT women's roster. But, she flourished more so main roster than she did in NXT. I mean, you look at Alexa from here to a year back, and she has completely changed. She went from being the manager to Blake and Murphy to being like, who the hell are Blake and Murphy? We all got to care about Alexa Bliss. Now, what's going to end up happening a year on out? She's going to be the ultimate babyface. I think that she is a legitimately likable person. Last week we had a question regarding social media, whether we follow people or not. If you follow Alexa Bliss on social media, it's really hard to dislike her. And I think it's going to be a very easy transition for her to become such a bad guy and do such a good job at doing what she does, that inevitably she's going to then switch, and then maybe we get Sasha on the other side of the fence. So I think that's what's going to end up happening. And now moving on, we have yet another woman from the roster, but this one's a little different based on what she's been doing. It is Alicia Fox. So Alicia Fox, just for context, she's still in WWE, guys. She's just been more in 205 Live. Most recently, she broke up with Noam Dar, or Noam Dar really broke up with her. She's been wrestling in live events, but not a lot has happened. And I think that's almost like most of her career, right? Not a lot has happened, I think, can greatly define Alicia Fox.
Yeah, Alicia Fox certainly is talented, and she's always kind of had these spurts of greatness, like when she had that sort of run going for the women's title where she was freaking out
Stone
and just
Cold
like
Fox.
causing chaos around the ring. But yeah, I don't know why they split her and Noam Dar up, because really it just left both of them with nothing to do, and now they are even less relevant than they were before. I really don't see too much changing for Alicia Fox in a year. She's always been a person to kind of pop up now and again for a story and then fade away. It's unfortunate, but the reality of the thing is there's just too many other women who are a higher priority.
Agreed, and ultimately, she has a really nice Northern Light suplex and a really nice tilt-a-wheel backbreaker. Aside from that, I don't really know what else to say for Alicia. It's not necessarily anything against her, but we haven't really had a chance, right, to like, what's Alicia Fox in the women's division? Because I feel like she's still part of the Divas movement, and they're trying to figure out, hey, like, is it too late for her to be part of the active wrestling portion, or should she just sort of be a valet, which, I mean, honestly, would still not be the end of the world. And speaking of not the end of the world, or maybe it is for him, we got Apollo Crews. So Apollo Crews, he was not really doing much in NXT. You know, he had a lot of hype going for him when he first got called up, and then people were going, okay, this guy smiles way too much. He had a feud with Tyler Breeze, he did a couple things in there, and all of a sudden, he got randomly called up to Raw. And I was thinking, okay, so maybe this is what's going to end up working for him. It was basically the same thing. Then he gets united with Titus O'Neil, and then we're thinking, finally, you know, the other two things, they didn't work out. But then Akira Tozawa took over, and Apollo Crews, where do I see him a year from now? PWG is a pretty good wrestling show. You know, Ring of Honor, they're doing things. Apollo Crews could be there for a while.
Yeah, Apollo Crews, I want to like the guy, and certainly his ability, you know, he has amazing ability, super athletic, is talented in the ring, but the personality just isn't there. In Titus O'Neil, you know, I felt like things started happening with Titus Worldwide and Apollo Crews, but then Tozawa came in and it just worked better with Tozawa, and Apollo Crews has now faded into background with Titus Worldwide. So I really don't know what it is. I think that Apollo Crews just still needs to find himself, still needs to get comfortable. It still just feels like he can't show his personality. You know it's there, but he just hasn't been able to let that out. And personality is everything. Apollo Crews, very talented in the ring. Nobody cares about him. Enzo Amore, no talent in the ring, and people care about him. It's personality first. Personality has to come
Are you
first.
implying that maybe Apollo Crews should go to 205 Live and form a tag team with Enzo Amore? No?
I don't think he should go to 205 Live. I would be surprised if he was if he was 205 or under. But you know what? Apollo Crews and Enzo as a tag team could work. It could be the new Big Cass and Enzo.
Would it be like Hard and Soft? Would that be the tag team name?
No, it would not. It would not. It would not.
No. Let's move on.
I don't know.
Arya Daivari. This is a guy that he was eliminated, I believe, in his first match in the Cruiserweight Classic, but he left a really good impression on me. You know, he's a family member of Daivari. I mean, look at his face. Like, you can tell the blood runs strong within that family. And he's got a lot of potential, but in an era where we are trying to shy away, I like to say we're trying to shy away as Jinder Mahal is currently doing his thing. Arya Daivari, you know, he definitely embraces his culture as part of the character, which I think also has a ceiling to it. You know, I've been watching 205 Live, and it seems like people do struggle to really feel something for him. And I strongly think it's because of Jinder. Because keep in mind, 205 Live happens after a SmackDown Live. So you've already had your fix of anti-American people, and that anti-American guy is your WWE champion. So in comparison, why should people boo you? I already booed everybody else. I already booed Rusev, you know, the whole combination. So a lot of talent in here. But unless he gets a makeover, almost and even a name change, because culturally speaking, it sucks. But stereotypes, you're going to be stereotyped in WWE unless you Kerwin White yourself, which sucks. But I think that's totally right. So a year from now,
and you don't want to Kerwin White yourself.
But a year from now, Arya, hang out with Chavo, become a caddy, man.
Oh my god, that's a legitimate suggestion from Juan.
Professional,
just letting that, yeah, yeah. Arya Daivari, like you said, the foreign heel thing is really played out. And I think everyone's kind of over it at this point. And you should only have one going at a time, tops. So for him, yeah, with the name and everything, like WWE has just conditioned everybody to essentially like believe in stereotypes, which is horrible. It really is actually a terrible thing. But that is the reality of wrestling. So yeah, he's really stuck in that foreign heel thing. And when you have guys like Jinder and even Rusev still playing off of that, you just come off as a lesser, watered down version of it. And the more foreign heels you have going on, the more it dilutes interest, and the less people even give a damn about each individual one. So he really should reinvent himself. So in a year's time, sort of you suggested, but I wouldn't say go the Kerwin White route, but just reinvent yourself in another way, that your gimmick should not have to do with your heritage, but something else.
Now this one right here, man, I don't know. Bayley. So Bayley's an interesting situation because she herself is expressed on, the Stone Cold podcast, I believe it was, in multiple forums, kind of like Sasha, the Sam Roberts Wrestling podcast, where Bayley's not sure about where her character is headed. And I think we can tell that as well. I don't think you need to be a wrestling journalist to really be able to analyze the context of why, when she got injured, yeah, that crowd was super smarky in Canada. I'm not blaming Canada. No, just because Keith isn't here, but I'm not blaming them. But there's very little reason to care about Bayley because her character finished evolving the moment she got called up to the main roster. And ever since then, that is all we've gotten. And that is honestly really freaking boring. When the character has no purpose other than to exist, that is when people have no reason to really listen to you or watch you on a weekly basis.
Yeah, Bayley. So right now, Bayley's in a really bad situation where it's really what we all feared, that she was. Not necessarily. It didn't happen exactly like we expected. A lot of us expected, hey, Bayley could come up on the main roster and she could just be rejected because she's too squeaky clean nice. But the reality is that people were really excited when Bayley first came up, but then they did everything in their power to make us feel like she sucks, essentially. That she, like they just told these embarrassing stories about her, and then Bayley just lost anyway. She didn't really get any redemption for how badly she was treated. So she just looks like a loser. What we need from Bayley, if Bayley is to remain her current character, she needs to go on some sort of journey like she did in NXT. That, you can use the fact that she's at her lowest low right now as a way to tell the story of, like, she needs to bounce back from this because everyone thinks she sucks. She needs to prove everybody wrong. And she needs to overcome adversity and just give her this long journey back to eventually winning the women's championship. But it needs to be told over a long period of time. And coming back from the injury will be a good way to start, but she should start from the bottom and work her way up. She can't just have this, oh, I'm back from injury, let's get a big pop and just immediately go into the women's main event or whatever, because that's not enough. That whole like comeback thing, the whole comeback pop, that's only going to last for so long. You need to take us on a journey, and that's what Bayley needs, because that's what got everybody to love her in the first place.
Similarly enough, when it comes to Lois Slows, talking about Big Cass now, Big Cass was in a situation where, from the rumors that came up about the possible split up between Enzo and Cass, everybody was going like, well, why? Because we know that one of them is good at a promo but bad in the ring, the other one's bad at a promo and solid in the ring. So you split them up, either they try to break ground or they fail. So that we try to get this rivalry going, and you could tell the crowd wasn't really caring about this, from a weird theme song to then a decent theme song, and then unfortunately, Big Cass got injured during the match that he had with Enzo, to the point where the match had to be ended immediately. And it seems like Big Cass is going to be out of action for anywhere between 7 to 9 months. Obviously that can always change, but the fact of the matter is that he is the one that turned heel. This is kind of like Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano in NXT. The difference is people honestly really cared about that breakup, whereas here, I mean, they had to try. They had to develop the importance of the breakup when it wasn't really there. So where do I see Big Cass in a year from now? Either a different kind of character. He can't just be the big guy. Like, he can't just be, I'm almost 7 foot tall and I wrestle. Because we've said it time and time again, you have Braun Strowman. So either you're a big guy that can wrestle like a small guy, like that's what Brock Lesnar did. Brock Lesnar's not 7 feet tall, but Brock Lesnar's a big guy. But then when
he's older than that,
yeah,
he's older than 7.
Yeah. He's at least 10. But Brock Lesnar is somebody that when you look at him, you don't think this guy can't move that fast, and then he can. He can sell. He can everything. All he needs is to sell a car. So Ryan, can Big Cass sell cars?
Thank you for that. Big Cass, and I think I mentioned this on a podcast not too long ago. Big Cass, this injury, you need to take this negative and turn it into a positive. And you have this time, all this time on the shelf, you have to reinvent yourself, because splitting from Enzo, you really lost your identity. And you aren't Braun Strowman. So don't be Braun Strowman. You can have a big guy gimmick, but you need something else going for you. So any type of just character change your look. You need to come back looking fresh. Cut your hair. That's what I would say. Cut your hair. Just look completely different and have a new type of gimmick to you.
Up next, what do we got in the roster, man? We go from one big guy to another, and I ain't talking about Ryback. I'm talking about the new, squeaky clean, shaven Big Show Ryan. Do you like your Big Show shaven or not?
I prefer a little bit of hair. I like the beard.
Yeah.
He looked very strange, that clean shaven Big Show.
That being said, that would have been perfect for, remember when he wore the diaper for like the New Year baby? Like, why couldn't he
I
shave
try to forget.
then? Oh, he tries to forget. Like, did you hear that story where he like apparently actually cried?
I heard him on Jericho talking about that was like one of the worst things he's had to do.
I mean, dude, you're 7 foot tall and you got to wear
Vince
a freaking
McMahon
diaper.
is a sick mother effer. That's all I'm gonna say.
I'm wondering where his right hand went.
Yeah.
Okay, talking about Big Show Ryan.
Yeah. So Big Show, for many years ago, like during like 2013, 2014, Big Show was on TV way too much. But now Big Show has really settled into the perfect role of, he shows up, he's like, what is it? Like a wizard shows up precisely when he needs to, or whatever the hell that saying
Something
is.
like that.
That's the Big Show now, he shows up at the right times to do the right thing. He's helping Braun Strowman and Big Cass. He's a valuable asset. And certainly in a year from now, I wouldn't be surprised if he just became somebody backstage, like an agent or whatever. I don't know how many years he has left in him. I mean, he can still go. He had a great match with Braun Strowman. So if he's still wrestling in a year, great, because he's doing the right thing and helping the future generation. And, he's probably one of the best big guys of all time. So the fact that there's so many guys that can learn from him, he's super, super valuable to WWE. So if keep doing what you're doing in a year, or if, you're going to hang up your boots, you're, a great backstage presence.
I pretty much have to agree with that. There's not a lot much else that needs to be said, because Big Show's done it all. Like, really, if he were to retire tomorrow, would anybody be sad?
He has nothing to prove to anybody. He's won every championship there is to win, essentially.
He had a rivalry with Spike Dudley and Brock Lesnar. He's feuded with everybody that there is to feud. I don't know if he actually feuded with Funaki, but he probably did at some point. So Big Show, within a year's time, I think he needs to have a really good WrestleMania match. Like, I've heard always him talking about the fact that he gets these weird matches at WrestleMania. You know, he had one with Cody Rhodes. That match wasn't too great, honestly. I think that it's time for him, like, if you're going to go out, don't have him wrestle like a guy his size. Have him wrestle like a smaller guy, and we can have, like, that David versus Goliath match that maybe we should have gone with Rey Mysterio, because we did those. But keep in mind, Big Show was not at the weight then that he is now. It seems like this is the most agile Big Show that we've ever had, maybe since going all the way back to WCW. So that's a possibility there. And now, this is quite the interesting pick here. Bo Dallas, you know, the actual real-life brother of Bray Wyatt, for those who don't know, because it's sometimes really easy to forget. You know, Bo Dallas is currently part of the Miztourage. You know, Ryan, you love that name. He's still kind of just in the background. Like, I think people expected the Miztourage to get more of a tag team opportunity. It seems like they've definitely just been, they're the lackeys. They're the J&J security to the Mrs. Seth Rollins.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is the Miztourage on paper looked really promising. And I still think it has potential to go somewhere. I like that Curtis Axel and Bo Dallas are finally getting TV time, because they are very talented guys that I think just haven't gotten their due. I mean, Curtis Axel did get much more of an opportunity and didn't really flourish, but I think there's something there to him, and definitely Bo Dallas is very talented. Yeah, that's the thing, is they've fallen into a more J&J security role where they really, and sort of like the Singh brothers too, where they're never really meant to look powerful. And that's the thing, is like Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel, these guys are legit and should be winning more and looking stronger. So I think they need to just build to that. Maybe it's right at the beginning to kind of show that, you know, you can't just immediately have them have too much credibility. You can't pull like a Jinder Mahal where overnight they're just all of a sudden really winning these matches that they haven't really built to that winning matches that it seems like they should be winning. So I hope that they start trending upward and winning more matches, because right now they just look like lackeys that are meant to be fed to somebody, and they should be so much more than that.
Agreed. And now up next, maybe one of the most favorite people we have had in recent history in WWE. We're talking about Braun Strowman, the monster among men. This guy started out wearing a sheep mask to conclude Monday Night Raw as the newest member of the Wyatt family. Before that, he was a rosebud in NXT. So this guy went in a very short amount of time from NXT developmental, having no wrestling experience, to going up to the main roster, to people basically poking fun at the fact that he wasn't exactly good in the ring, to now he's flipping ambulances, he's hanging out in the main event scene, and most of all, being pretty freaking good at it in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, Braun Strowman right now, he is much like Alexa Bliss. He's kind of a guy that people weren't putting a lot of stock in and then just came out of nowhere. I mean, he was kind of just this guy in the Wyatt family that people were kind of like, you know, hey, whatever.
He's tall.
I remember hearing when, like, oh, they're going to call this guy up to the Wyatt family. You're probably not going to be excited about it. And people were kind of like, whoa, this guy's big, but he can't really do anything. Well, we've come a long way from that. Braun Strowman is he's the fastest rising star right now in the WWE. He is the guy, wrestling fans love to kind of hitch their wagon to a guy who's becoming popular and on the rise, and that guy you want to see succeed, and that is Braun Strowman right now. So this guy's just crushing it. He's about to be facing Brock Lesnar in a pay-per-view main event, so this is without question the biggest match of his career. And in a year from now, I want to see him as either WWE or Universal Champion, wherever he ends up. You should strike while the iron is hot and get this guy a championship within a year's time.
Agreed. Braun Strowman, I don't see him as WWE Champion in a year's time. I see that happening a lot earlier. I've been an advocate thinking, hell, he was my pick for SummerSlam. And, unfortunately, that did not come to be. But I think it's only a matter of time before we really see him with that championship. And not only that, but really replacing guys like Brock Lesnar. Who's going to be the one to tumble down the monster among men. And it could be Bray Wyatt. No, it's not. It's not going to be Bray Wyatt, but that is the next person that we're going to be talking about. The former leader of the never dying Wyatt family, because whenever it seems like that Wyatt family's gone, they figure out a way to bring it back. This could be the longest period of time that we've gone without a Wyatt family. And realistically, I think that Bray Wyatt, if you look at where he is now to where he was before, it's just been a lot of nothing. Like he has this formula where they pick a really good opponent for him to have solid matches. He does all the promo work. I mean, he did all the promo work for his rivalry with The Undertaker. He developed a few storyline by himself. So the guy can get the job done. But for whatever reason, it seems like all he is talk, not a lot of walk. He can deliver the message. He loses and then acts like nothing ever happened. He lost to The Undertaker way back then and still said he was the new face of fear, which made no sense because you lost the match. Like the whole premise is you got to take down The Undertaker so you can call yourself that. So we have a guy that's in denial. Ryan, I think we need to find the little Wyatt some treatment because I am very concerned for his mental health right now.
Bray Wyatt is just... disappointment is probably always going to be the word that will follow him for the rest of his career. And it really comes down to, like you said, his character never seems to change. He doesn't seem to evolve, and nothing seems to affect him. He's kind of like the Super Cena that loses, where it's no matter what, nothing phases him. And it seems like he's always stuck in one place. Much like The Undertaker kind of played the role of the gatekeeper for the main event, I feel like Bray Wyatt is sort of that mid-card gatekeeper where, like, to work your way up to the main event again, you have to get in a feud with Bray Wyatt and beat him, and then you move up to a more important feud. He's just he's kind of just stayed in that upper mid card for forever. And of course, he got that short WWE title reign, but then immediately losing it at WrestleMania and kind of going to Raw and just getting lost in the shuffle. That brief glimpse of hope that we had for Bray Wyatt during the great SmackDown Live run is no longer there, and I don't see anything changing for Bray Wyatt because we've been hoping for better for him for so many years now that I feel like they are happy with what they're doing with Bray Wyatt, and that's just where he's gonna stay.
And up next, we have the current reigning and defending Universal Champion, the Beast incarnate himself, Brock Lesnar, the man that ended the Undertaker streak, and now he's just part of the roster. Most recently, there's been the long-standing rumors about him wanting to go back to the UFC because of the suspension of the UFC fighter. Like, now that's all up in limbo, right? So we'll never know. Like, if he never goes to UFC, is it because he just didn't want to, or because that window of opportunity came a closing? Where has Brock Lesnar been? Like, my answer is nowhere. Like, if you really look at the context of Brock Lesnar, it feels like the casual fan, cares a great deal about him. But I think people like us, people that watch the shows on a week-to-week basis, what has he actually contributed to it? Like, I really got to say it's nothing. So for me, like, this is a completely selfish answer. I hope that Brock Lesnar's not in WWE in a year's time for whatever reason. Like, if this current Brock Lesnar is what they want to pitch for us for the next 12 months, I'm out.
With Brock Lesnar, I disagree with you. I think he definitely brings that word legitimacy. I think he does bring a legitimacy.
Legitimacy. I
Yes.
got it.
It's tough to say multiple
Just say,
times.
you know what? That's
does.
why Sasha Banks says legit, not legitimate boss.
Yeah. When Brock Lesnar is about to fight someone, you feel it. It feels like it's going to be a real fight. And when he's involved with a lot of these multi-man matches, they're generally awesome. So, and Brock Lesnar has actually been around a lot recently. So that's certainly helped. So I do appreciate what Brock Lesnar does, and I understand the value he brings, and he honestly does deliver most of the times in his matches, and his matches are usually really fun to watch. That being said, I'm not exactly excited when he's champion, just because we know we're going to get less appearances of the Universal title, and we had the been there, done that when he was champion, leading into WrestleMania 31, I think. Yeah, WrestleMania 31. So that was when he had the championship for before that. In a year's time, I think Brock Lesnar is going to hang it up. This seems like his last year. Whether he goes to UFC or not, I feel like this is his last year. He's going to lose to Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, because even though we thought maybe the plan had changed, I think we're still heading towards that plan. So they'll get the decision that they wanted many years ago at WrestleMania 31, where Roman Reigns just beats Brock Lesnar. We've delayed the inevitable for many years, but don't get me wrong, it's going to happen. So I think Lesnar will hang it up after then, and I'm sure the next time we'll see him is for Hall of Fame induction.
Going back to 205 Live, going to talk about Cedric Alexander, the man that was so good at the Cruiserweight Classic that the crowd actually chanted for WWE to sign him, and it actually happened. Like, Triple H walked out, gave him a hug while he was all sweaty. Went like, dude, you're going to get them $1 million contracts right now. Probably not actually $1 million, but has to be at least a little too sweet. But Cedric Alexander, he came back from an injury a couple months ago. He was out for a while. I had said it then, and I'll say it again. I think this guy has unlimited potential outside of the Cruiserweight roster. I think that there's something about him. There's a charisma to him from the way that he portrays himself, his smile. Like, he looks like a really nice guy. He looks like, in your format of like your John Cena's, your clean-cut baby faces. He seems to play that into perfection, but then he's also very unique in that ring, despite the fact that he's part of the Cruiserweight roster where there's a bunch of potential. So where do I see him a year from now? Hopefully, either he bulks up to, justifiably get out of 205 Live, because at least in kayfabe, if you look at the roster, he is exactly 205 pounds. He's 205 pounds based on the website, which is kayfabe. So, Ryan, all he needs to do is gain a pound, and he's out of that roster. Dude, gain the damn pound. You can lose one of them abs for a little while.
I mean, that's cutting it close. Cedric Alexander, he's the guy who I thought would be the first to dethrone Neville. I mean, now at this point, it feels like Neville was not technically dethroned because they made Tozawa's win really look like a fluke. But if they're going to have Neville's reign go all the way out until WrestleMania, then Cedric Alexander is the guy you need to strap the rocket to then challenge him at WrestleMania. This is the guy, this is the star you should be building out of the 205 Live show, the brand new star. And I'm just surprised we don't see him on Raw very often. I feel like they could be making better use of him, but in classic WWE fashion, they're probably just putting him on hold. I mean, I'm sure he's featured on 205 Live, but like I said, if you want him to be more accepted by the rest of the WWE audience, then he should be featured more on Raw. I think WWE is probably just putting him on hold until we get to WrestleMania season, and then they're gonna go and start building him up. Why can't we be building him up in the background up until then?
You're asking for too much.
It's because I'm asking for too much is exactly it. But yes, Cedric Alexander, great potential. Hopefully will transcend the Cruiserweight division once that inevitably goes away.
Ryan, you know what I realized? There's a lot of people in this roster.
Yes. Yeah, we might have to start speeding things up.
Yeah, so let's be... this is not to rush.
We're only on C, damn it.
We're only on C.
We're still on Raw.
Yeah, for the Raw roster. So let's... Ryan,
all right.
Ryan, clear your throat. Like, we're gonna just go right to it, okay? So the format now, changing it 205 Live. I'm gonna give my comment, you give yours, and then we cry. In that order. So next up, we have ourselves the King of Swing, Cesaro. He's gone in and out of tag teams for so many times. Like, he pays tribute to Tyson Kidd via his sharpshooter, and now he's in another tag team. So I think he's destined to remain as part of the tag team divisions. Where do I see him a year from now? In the exact same spot, because I think the boat has sailed on Cesaro as a singles competitor.
Cesaro, I think he'll remain in the tag team for a while. He's super talented. That goes without saying. I think he will eventually break out into the singles division again. However, I really still don't think he's in ring, he's a main event talent, but you need the personality. And it's just, how many years has it been? I still haven't seen that personality enough for main event level from Cesaro.
Next up, we have Kurt Hawkins. And moving on, we're going to be going to Curtis Axel. And
Curtis Axel, everything we said about Bo Dallas applies to Curtis Axel.
Exactly. Kurt Hawkins, I'm so sorry, man. But really, what are we supposed to say? What are we supposed to say?
Yeah, just keep going.
Dana Brooke. Dana Brooke.
What happened to the Titus Worldwide stuff?
What do you mean? Oh, yeah.
Wasn't she? Yeah.
Well, okay, real talk, getting to a second here. I don't know if you're aware, her boyfriend passed away last week.
Oh, that's true.
So, keep in mind, obviously, she developed an organization on his name. So, she's in and out of the company right now. So I think maybe, like, Dana Brooke right now is sort of an untouchable topic because we don't really know what the future holds for her. So then, going up next, Darren Young. He wasn't great. He's not going to be great.
He's been injured also.
Well, for a guy that's days off.
He's taken a lot of days off. Yeah, Darren Young, I think this guy's underrated in the ring. And, he was starting to show some of his personality. Unfortunately, got hurt, and the Bob Backlund thing never truly took off. I feel like they had something with the little segments, but once it transitioned to the actual in-ring stuff, it just wasn't working as well. So hopefully he figures something out. But I like that he was trying something different.
So basically, we were right. Moving on, let's just combine a Dash Wilder, Scott Dawson, the Revival. I think these guys have unlimited potential. It's going to be great when they get called up to the main roster.
Healthy.
Yeah, it's like, oh, wait a minute. They were called up to the main roster. It's just easy to forget because every time they try to wrestle, those bodies, man. They don't rule.
It's easy to say these guys, when they're healthy, they're gonna be a force in the Raw tag division. It's just when they get healthy.
And then up next, we have ourselves the current half of the Raw Tag Team Champions, Dean Ambrose. Dean Ambrose, he went from being a SmackDown champion, pretty decent, I'll say, SmackDown champion. Had feuds with Dolph Ziggler, etc. Now he's on the Raw side. I think that he's in a really good spot. Realistically, people love the Shield. He's with Seth Rollins. He needs to do not a lot much else to get over to have people care about him right now. So just remain champion for a little while.
I like Dean Ambrose. He knows how to be entertaining. The thing is, in a year's time, I think he's going to get a heel turn finally. We need to see that side of Dean Ambrose at some point. He's been a babyface for so long. Let's see that heel side of Dean Ambrose that we've all waited for and know he has.
Next, we have ourselves Drew Gulak from 205 Live. If you guys haven't checked him out, he looks nothing like the picture now that I'm showing here for the video version of the podcast, which I don't know why they even bother updating. The fact that they haven't updated that shows how much they care about 205 Live, but he has this storyline, this gimmick for a while, where it's like he's trying to make for a better 205 Live that doesn't revolve around high-flying spots. Apparently, he took this from the independent scene, brought it up to the main roster. So that will be excellent, but just don't limit it to 205 Live because once again, it's such a great gimmick that is being wasted on a show that largely features these over-the-top antics.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. It's just, people are just unfortunately not really invested in the division. So if he's not one of the bigger characters, it's how much time does he really get to develop that?
For me, I would like to walk with Elias personally. Maybe go to Central Park after that. Go to Mice and Kaiser in New York, have a really nice scrambled eggs breakfast. Can get some waffles. And then where do I see him a year from now? Maybe he goes to Boston. Get some waffles and some scrambled eggs. Realistically speaking, I think Elias has a ton of talent that we didn't see in NXT. He's become so comfortable on that microphone. Just keep this up. Keep this up. Don't force it. Do not push the man just because you want to push him. That doesn't usually work. So just keep him where he is right now. Have him win the Intercontinental Championship and keep him there for a very long time within a year's time.
Yeah, Elias has got a really fun gimmick. Another surprise out of NXT that people didn't really have a lot of, hope in. But I think he's doing really well for himself. The gimmick is great for a mid-card act. If he ever wants to evolve past that, he'll probably have to drop it for a main event level, but I'd say let him flourish in the mid-card for a long time because this is a really great spot for him.
Emma, from weird characters to weird theme music to who started the women's revolution, I get that they're trying to maybe be self-aware of where WWE was about a year and a half ago with the women's movement, and maybe they're trying to turn that into a storyline. I'm not personally interested in that. I don't really see great things for Emma long-term just because it seems like whenever they try, she is like the Summer Rae. It's like the forgotten woman that paved the way for the current roster right now.
Yeah, Emma, I think, needs to pull a Drew Galloway and
grow
just
beard.
Get out and reinvent yourself. Get your value back up. Get your indie
Chest hair.
cred and get what?
Chest hair, grow chest hair, grow beard.
Just get outside of WWE like Cody Rhodes did as well, and just bring your value up, and then come back in a couple of years because right now she's not being respected. And they're kind of trashed. Like I said, she's getting Zack Ryder. So I'd say just get out and bring your value back up.
Enzo Amore, a certified G and a bona fide stud, and you cannot teach that. But can you teach him long-term career employment? We shall find out. But what I'll say about Enzo Amore is like he's part of 205 Live now. I think it's a strategically ingenious move to to keep that live crowd specifically, not so much on the network to stick around for 205 Live. But aside from that, unless on a wrestling capacity he improves, I just don't see how this one-trick pony won't just inevitably get old the same way it sort of did in the main roster, after a week-to-week basis.
I like Enzo in 205 Live. I think they're doing the right thing, kind of building him up by actually having him win singles matches and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, his wrestling ability isn't the greatest, but if he keeps working more of these singles matches, I think he's inevitably going to get better. I mean, he's serviceable, and that's all we need at this point. I mean, the other guys are so talented that I'm sure they'll be able to make him look better. At the end of the day, his personality is really what carries him, and that's exactly what 205 Live needs is more personality. So he's in a good spot.
The Demon, Finn Balor. We finally saw the Demon unleashed at SummerSlam, and it's just a question of where are they going to go with him. I think it's really easy to blame WWE for the push or lack of push for Finn Balor. Keep in mind he came back from injury after just beating Roman Reigns and then becoming Universal Champion when he first got called up. So as a company, it makes total sense. Like, whoa, hold on, buddy. We got to figure out how you're doing before we push you any longer. How do I see him long term? Of course, they're going to give him the championship. He's marketable. He's got the demon part. I think his promo when he's not the demon is still a little bit boring for me, but he's good in the ring. He's got a great look, and he can slowly, it seems like they're differentiating his wrestling capacity as Finn Balor versus the Demon King.
Yeah, I think they need to kind of flesh out that personality outside of the demon a little more, and also kind of what the demon means. Just give a little bit more meaning to it. But he's very much like Jeff Hardy, where he's a great wrestler, has kind of this unique edge to him with his character, and he's not like a big talker. So I think they're very much like each other, and like people friggin' love Jeff Hardy. Was he the biggest personality on the microphone? No, but there was just something about him that drew people in, and I think Finn Balor has that same thing. So I think he's going to continue to be a high priority.
Gentleman Jack Gallagher. It's an interesting first name, but Gentleman, I'm a big fan of him. I think he's been doing an awesome job with the little spotlight that he's been given. Ryan's face is like, Juan, you say
I'm just
such stupid things.
It's a great first name.
First name Gentle, last name Man. But Jack Gallagher, man, from the way that he's able to do all these weird, not hardcore, but street fight matches, but he's able to use like the umbrella, Ella, and like the F.
Like, we gotta go faster, man. We gotta go faster.
You go then.
Okay. I really like Jack Gallagher. It's a shame he's not on Raw too much anymore, but the guy's got personality. He knows what he is, and that's what I like about Gentleman Jack. He's really fun. He's just fun, and I like what he's doing. So regardless of 205 Live, keep this guy around.
Next up, we have Goldust. So Goldust, not really sure, like, he's back to, like, sort of the old school look, but realistically, he hasn't really been doing much with the exception of the R-Truth storyline that nobody really cared about. It's just nice to have him around. Like, I think above everything, it's like for the next year's time, I see him becoming an agent, a coach, somebody in the performance center, because he's got, you know, decades of wisdom as the natural, as Goldust, as everything, Black Rain. So I see that for him.
Yeah, to mention Black Rain. But Goldust, yeah. It's unfortunate that people aren't invested in his character right now, but it really hasn't been given the proper care. So regardless of what he does in the future, much like the Big Show, he's a very, very valuable personality and valuable mind to have around. So yeah, whether he's still wrestling or keep him as an agent, he's very valuable.
Grand Metalik, for those who don't know, is actually part of the WWE roster. Now, if you went by what WWE is doing, you would easily forget that, because this is probably one of the most talented people in 205 Live, and he's sort of being brought back now, like on a week-to-week basis, but not really doing much. He's a guy that he's bigger than the average cruiserweight, but moves like a Rey Mysterio, but with a little bit more weight to him. Like, picture later WWE Rey Mysterio, but without the terrible shattered knees. So I see a lot of potential for him, but unless they decide to push him in a year's time, those six-man tag team matches are going to be pretty fun.
Yeah, I really don't have too much to say about him because I've barely seen any of him, but
most haven't.
Hopefully he gets more featured.
And now, Ryan, I don't know how many kids you have or are planning to have, but this guy, he's got a couple kids, man. He needs this job, so Heath Slater, like, he's got to be looking at Jinder and Drew and be going, I got to win something, man. I got to win something fierce. So within a year's time, I don't see him becoming WWE champion, but I would love for him to have, and this is a weird comparison, the Undertaker-Jeff Hardy ladder match, something like that for him, where it's like he's inches away from becoming Universal or WWE champion and doesn't do it, but that's going to be just an awesome experience to witness.
Heath Slater, I think it shows when him and Rhino got their time to be a tag team, they were really entertaining, and their segments were great. They did great character building with Heath Slater. So it really shows that if they give the effort to giving him a story, he can do well with it. And I mean, he's been kind of living off that ever since. And it just goes to show how memorable he made those segments. I would love to see him just surprise The Miz in a win and just get an IC title run, like even if it's just a brief one, just so you can say, look at 3MB now. I think an IC title would still be a huge victory for Heath to have that 3MB trifecta going on. Or if not that, maybe a tag title win or something, surprising the Shield, and then that's when the Dean Ambrose heel turn happens or something like that.
That would have
I want
to be
something, I would love to see Heath get another storyline because I think he did so well with the one that was given to him.
True. Now getting to Jason Jordan, I'm just happy he finally found his father. It's got to suck, like, for years just living this fake life and then figuring out your father had a broken freaking neck, and yet despite that, he became an Olympic gold medalist. So what do you think about this? Like, or is he going to hang out more with Kurt? Like, Labor Day, just happened. So do you think they hung out together? Like, how do they spend Christmas? Talk to me about that.
We ain't got time for that crap, man. All right, Jason Jordan needs to turn heel at some point because otherwise this thing's never going to work. When he turns heel, he'll be able to get, really let his personality kind of come out. And then eventually, if you want to transition to babyface, sure. Be what Kurt Angle was when he was a heel. You need to be that.
Brother Nero, we've been expecting you. Now, this is an interesting one to talk about because we were recording before Raw. So we'll be as lenient as possible because maybe you probably commented something about this on the Raw review, depending on what happened with Brother Nero. But I think it's been cool. We got to see the Hardys return live at WrestleMania. What I see, I guess we can sort of lump up Matt and Jeff in many ways in this one. They got to bring the broken universe in some way. Like you mentioned before, like I don't care how, you got to bring that in. It's too damn good to be wasted just in a company like TNA and elsewhere. Bring it in, change the names, whatever. Do something eventful and memorable in the main roster in your last run.
Yeah, I'll reiterate what I said last week about the Hardys. Is Jeff can do Jeff in the singles run. I think the nostalgia tag team thing ran its course. So have Jeff be a single star again, and he can be same old Jeff because that Jeff works. Matt Hardy, I think, needs to embrace the whole broken thing, and he can be on his own doing that. So whatever you want to call it, woken, broken, shattered, whatever, let Matt do that.
Up next, we're going to talk about, Ryan, is my webcam working? Because maybe you can't see me because we're going to talk about John Cena. Brapadu, Ryan. Talk to me about John Cena, the free agent.
Brapadu, man.
Brapadu.
John Cena. Keep doing John Cena things. Keep basically becoming a mainstream star and working high profile matches. Cena's, there's less, he's at the back end of his career and he's doing exactly what he should be doing.
Pretty much that. So we'll now move on to Kalisto. Kalisto's had quite the evolution in WWE or lack thereof from NXT to main roster. Like the moment he got paired up with Sin Cara, it's like, dude, I'm sorry.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
Sin Cara, it doesn't matter which version of Sin Cara it is, that is just a black hole for your career.
At this point, I think that little storyline he had for like a solid 2 weeks with Braun Strowman is going to be the farthest that he's going to get in the main roster. Like much like we've said with Drew Galloway, get out, and then get back in.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because, he had one of the best spots at TLC a couple of years ago, and you were like, man, Kalisto's on the rise, and now it's like, Kalisto who? Maybe if Neville wasn't Neville, then Kalisto should have been the guy spearheading 205 Live. But Neville's already really taken that job, and I don't think there's enough room for two in that situation. So, yeah, I really don't know what to say about Kalisto other than maybe give him some TV time again.
Let's talk about the Good Brothers, Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, the guys that had a lot of hype going in, but really it seems like now they're just part of the roster. Think that we can leave all the Bullet Club references and all that to the past, because Ryan, if they were to see you down the street, pretty sure they would call you a
Yeah, so for the Good Brothers, I would like to see them show some more of the personality we've seen, whether it be on Talking Shop or, of course, a more family-friendly version of, the Talking Front. I know, but it's possible. And were you doing the Chad Too Bad laugh there? Yeah. So, yeah, we want to see more of their Southpaw personalities and their Talking Shop personalities because they sound like, for two guys that are super funny outside of WWE, they just kind of sound a little scripted and lame on their, promos. So, be that personality in WWE, and they would be so over. And I'd like to see them form some sort of club thing with, if Adam Cole eventually gets called up or something, bring back the club or join them with AJ Styles.
Up next, we have Lince Dorado, and he's from San Juan, Puerto Rico. And realistically, I don't have a lot much else to say.
Yep, let's move on.
Moving on. I'm sorry, man. I'm just being honest. You're a good talent, but so is half the roster. Mark Henry's part of the roster, so technically we got to say something there. Although it seems like he's basically done at this point.
Yeah, not sure, but we can say Big Show, Big Show role.
Yeah.
Mark Henry, same deal as the Big Show. I just don't know if he's hurt right now or whatever, but pretty much same thing applies. He can help big guys get over, and he's a good mind to have backstage.
Oh, Mickey, you're so fine, you blew my mind. Hey, Mickey, Hey, Ryan,
Mickey
talk
James,
to me about Mickey.
Yeah. Yeah, Mickey James. I feel like she's just not being utilized properly for someone who is, a talented woman who has a lot of knowledge. She doesn't really get featured enough for people to really like. This generation of wrestling fans hasn't been told why they should give a damn about Mickey James. So if you want to use her, then you gotta put some priority into her. If not, send her down to NXT, not really as a demotion, but at least the NXT crowd will respect and care about her, and she can help put over and train the women in that division. Because at this point I feel like if they're not going to do anything with her on the main roster, she is way more valuable in NXT.
Oh yeah. Then up next, we have ourselves Mustafa Ali in 205 Live, kind of going back to the Daivari thing where, I mean, his character in this case is, don't stereotype me, but they're not really doing much. I think he's incredibly talented and highly athletic, but like Lindsay, yes, everybody is technically talented, so what else?
Yeah, I mean, Mustafa Ali is super impressive. I mean, during that Beach Ball Mania match, this guy was crushing it and nobody was giving him his due. So obviously, I'd love to see this guy get more of a shot because he is super talented. And he could be that character that, hey, like, my name sounds, to wrestling fans, my name sounds like a foreign heel guy that you should be booing. But like, it could be a guy that transcends that, which is something we need. I think that character that is a babyface that breaks the stereotypes is something we've needed for a long time, and that could be his thing.
The king of the cruiserweights, never. No, he doesn't do the laugh part, but I feel like that was necessary.
Yeah. I think we could speak for both of us saying, Neville, keep doing what you're doing, and then your job is to pass that torch to somebody, assuming 205 Live succeeds.
Agreed. And now moving on to Nia Jax. Nia Jax is now part of the women's championship scene based on this transition that's happening right now. Seems like the BFFs are no longer between Alexa and herself. I see that she has a lot of potential, but the key word being potential. Like, I don't think we've seen a match.
That's been the word of the day.
Yeah, it's like we've had a lot of chances to see that potential be presented. I don't think it's actually happened yet. So maybe now it will.
Yeah. She's getting better and better each time she's in the ring. So she's working her way there. She hasn't found her inner destructive monster like Braun Strowman has, but I think she wants to be a little bit different. Based on her interview, I think it was on Jericho's podcast, she doesn't want to be just the classic women's monster destroyer. She wants a bit of a difference to that. But the thing is, I don't really know what that difference is. Yeah. So that needs to be conveyed. But she still needs to be a destructive force in the ring. But she's finding her groove.
Yeah, she is.
So I think there's a lot of promise. She'll probably be women's champion within a year.
Up next, Noam Dar, the supernova of 205 Live. I don't know if I'm doing like a Arnold Schwarzenegger with every other accent.
Alicia,
I'll be back.
Oh my God, you're terrible.
That was Ryan, the last one.
He doesn't even sound like Arnold.
I know he doesn't.
But he does have a little bit of a weird accent that can be hard to understand at times. But I like Noam Dar. He's got a interesting look to him. I just don't know what the hell. I mean, a lot of these 205 guys, I don't know what the hell's gonna happen to them.
It's just they're gonna be put in a clearance rack.
Is the show gonna get canceled? What the hell's gonna happen to most of them after that? Who knows?
Then what do you think about R-Truth?
R-Truth, I love R-Truth. R-Truth is just, he's great for those comedy moments. And you know what? He's worth having around just for those moments. And I love R-Truth for that. So keep doing what you do with R-Truth, because like when he comes out to a Royal Rumble and tries to set up a ladder, it's amazing and I love it and it's super fun. So R-Truth is just fun to have around.
So what about yourself? Talk about Rhino, man.
Rhino,
I think you're in a pretty good spot.
Rhino, I mean, hey, I really like him and Heath Slater, so I'd like to see them get another run as a tag team because they're fun.
I want to quickly talk about Rich Swann. I think Rich Swann has unlimited potential, but much like the other 205 guys, and I think that at this point, if we come up with other 205 guys who may just copy-paste, because really it's like potential's there, highly athletic, but from a storyline standpoint, Rich Swann had a shot to become champion, but because he didn't want to dethrone Neville, I think like that was just as far as they were really willing to go. So Ryan, I'm going to leave you with the main event, which is the big dog. Okay, Dominic wants to hear from me in a poll for the video version. Will you take the
Well, I did want to say like another thing, like kind of on the Rich Swann thing, is this just goes to show, and we're friggin', oh my God, we're like getting up to the hour mark here, and we're just finishing up Raw. Like, what the hell? This just shows you there's just too many people on this roster, really. Like, you have all these 205 guys. There's only enough, even with 5 hours, 6 hours with 205 Live of TV a week. There's just not enough time to get for all these guys to be doing stuff. There's just too many. There's too many chefs in the kitchen right now, and it's getting out of control.
Hey kids, let's talk about Roman Reigns, the big dog.
Roman Reigns. I mean, this guy is he is the guy, and I mean, even though, most recently on Raw with Cena and all that, last week he was kind of really cut down to size for whatever reason when you're trying to get people to like this guy. He's finding his groove more and more. The guy puts on great matches. He hasn't had a bad match in a long time. And they're getting better at presenting him, and he's really getting more comfortable in his position. And at the end of the day, like, I think he eventually, it's going to be like Cena. In several years, we're going to be like, man, Roman Reigns, like, I respect the hell out of the guy. He's really committed to the position, and he's legit. I mean, we all were tired of Cena and mad at Cena for a very long time, but now almost everybody you can't deny the respect that you have for him and the hard work that he does. And I think Roman Reigns will be the same thing, that in several years we will grow to appreciate what he put in.
I want to talk about Samoa Joe, so we go from a Samoan named Joe to Samoa Joe. And with Joe, I'm just happy that he finally got to the main roster. I think he's been able to excel, especially during the little period where it seems like he was going to be the next top guy, or at least, the top bad guy to really challenge the good ones. It's just challenging because you have Brock, you have Braun, and then Joe, right? So, like, not all three can be at the top at the very same time. So I think Samoa Joe is almost, for better or worse, going to be given that Bray Wyatt spot that Bray had way back when he feuded with Cena the first time, which is, you're up here, but please recognize that you're not going to go past that ceiling. Going back to that ceiling, I think that's going to be a very big challenge.
Yeah, Joe, I mean, that feud with Brock Lesnar really had him break out and become a legit force on the roster. I say send this guy to SmackDown, where he can be, going toe-to-toe with AJ Styles for the number one spot on the show, because there's just too many main event guys on the Raw roster. Put a big fish in a small pond and put Joe over to SmackDown, and he'll be champion real soon, I think. So yeah, Joe is he knows what he is, and he plays it perfectly. And, he's on the older side now, so let's, get this guy within a year, get him a title run, because he will do well. So, yeah, Joe's playing it perfectly right now. I have nothing bad to say about him.
Then up next, let's talk about the boss, Sasha Banks, and I'll quickly comment by stating that, much like Bayley, she is in a pretty similar situation. I mean, at a much higher level, because I think we all recognize that Sasha is part of WWE, right? And I think almost permanently, but the fact that she can't defend the championships, it still surprises me how honest she was in that interview with Sam Roberts about, being afraid to talk to Vince McMahon, not really being satisfied with where she's at. So in a year's time, either a Sasha heel turn or really just sort of coasting and being marketable, but that's as far as it's going to go. Because where else do you go?
It's true. I mean, Sasha Banks is certainly one of the best women they have, and it seems like they're pulling like she's the next Bayley. Like they're kind of making these moves in a way to kind of purposely make her look bad and get people to care about her less. And that's unfortunate. I mean, she could certainly do with a heel turn, because truly the best Sasha Banks was when she was playing a villain. And the thing is, like, this is a whole nother conversation, so I'll just move past it really quickly. But this whole like being a baby face and, you know, having the kids or whatever, like they don't want to turn people heel because of the kids. Well, when a story suffers because you just can't change a character, then the show just becomes less interesting overall. And I think more things suffer from that. There'll always be good guys for the kids to latch on to. And you can't be afraid to freshen up a television show because of the kids.
You just described WWE's main problem for every single superstar. That's a thick topic. Speaking of thick, let's talk about Seth frickin' Rollins. Let's burn it down, man. Talk to me about Rollins.
Burn it down. Seth Rollins is in a good place right now. His storyline with Dean Ambrose was exactly what he needed to kind of get his character back on track. So as long as they keep the developing relationship between Dean and Seth going, and they don't just kind of fall into, hey, we're just the happy-go-lucky tag team of the Shield now, and we're just going to coast, then I think they're in a good place. So just don't coast, keep the story developing, and Seth Rollins is in a great place as a babyface now.
Talking about Sheamus, extremely similar situation to Cesaro, so I'm just going to say tag team specialist. He's going to stay there for a very long time. And once again, people know who you are. You're marketable. You look like a superstar. So really, what else needs to be said right now?
Yeah, I like Sheamus in the tag division right now with Cesaro. Not against him being a single star again at some point. And he's good at that kind of upper mid card. And then he can flirt with the main event scene from time to time. Much better as a heel. So keep him that way.
With Brian Kendrick, copy-paste from previous 205 guys. I think it's just nice that you have an experienced veteran there.
Good vet. Yeah. Good vet for 205 Live.
But he falls under the same category as everybody else, unfortunately. So moving on now to The Miz, Intercontinental Champion. All I'll say is The Miz is the perfect Intercontinental Champion. He is like the solid champion. You know who he is. That being said, like, The Miz has never been a face or he's never had a turn. If you really think about it, he's basically been heel his whole career.
They tried a little bit of a babyface run with the whole whatever, I forget. Oh, Wade Barrett.
Yeah, but that I don't really count that. But what's going to happen in a year's time? He's spoken the truth a lot, not to our truth, like the truth. So I think inevitably at some point they got to go, hey, he's got a point. Can we make people cheer this guy for being honest and accurate?
Yeah. The Miz, great as IC champ. I'd love to see him go back to SmackDown, become WWE champion, because or at least when Lesnar retires or whatever, some space might open up for him to be champion. I want to see one more final world title run for The Miz. But I mean, he is so good in his current spot too. So I mean, as long as The Miz has a microphone, he's going to be entertaining.
Ryan, I got 2 words for you. Ura. Or is that 4? Is it Ura? Not sure.
No, it is 2. It is 2.
Okay.
It's like URAH or something.
Okay. So, quick comment about Titus O'Neil. I'm happy hey man, it's a lot of people. I got to entertain myself here. So,
yeah.
You know, Titus O'Neil, I've been happy with the whole Titus Worldwide stuff he's been doing, just because initially I hated it, but I grew to like it because he's been committed to it. And he's a manager despite the fact that he can destroy all these people, so it's hilarious to me. Aside from that, I don't really see him like breaking out, because whenever he gets into the ring, it seems like he's either dangerous or seems very lost.
I love him as a manager, and I think the only thing that keeps him from being a full-time manager is the fact that he is a humongous human being who looks like he should be the guy who should be doing the wrestling. But you know what? Let's just put that aside. He's great as a manager. I really like him in that spot. And if you want to put him in the occasional match, do so. But keep Titus Worldwide going. I think it's surpassed anybody's expectations.
Talking about TJP, first of all, he's got a beautiful pig named Cupcake. So much for a heel character. But I think that aside from dabbing and aside from being great in that ring, I think he would be like a similar to like a Dana Bryan situation. Get him out of 205 Live, have him be this underdog guy, not just because he was homeless, because that killed the character. Honestly, that was the worst thing they could have done. Just milk that to death. Just let him be a humble guy that wants to move on up.
Yeah, I mean, I like him as the heel too, just because he's kind of get that face you want to punch. But TJP, if you just want to have him be the likable babyface or the kind of cocky heel, either one really works for him.
True. So now, get on your knees, Ryan, because we're going to talk about Tony Nese. Mr. 8
He's got
Pac.
abs and he's stuck in the shuffle like everybody else.
And folks, with that, we have covered the 205 Live and Raw portions of everything that we think about the current state of the WWE roster. Now, realistically, this was just a little longer than we thought it would be, right, Ryan?
Yeah. We thought we'd be able to go a little bit faster, but, we wanted to give as many people a proper evaluation as we could. Exactly.
So what we're going to be doing is that we're going to handle the SmackDown Live portion of this on next week's podcast. So this way, we can also get your input. Like, what do you think about something like this where you just break down the roster, really talk about each one? I think that this is a great opportunity to really reflect on this. Like, I think the fact that most of the people that we covered, we kept saying the word potential. We got to see what's going to happen. It's a lot of what ifs, what's going to happen down the road. But very little do I think like we felt was now. Look at what this happened. You look at the women's movement and it seems like Sasha, we don't know what's going to happen. Bayley, we don't know what's going to happen. It seems like Alexa Bliss is really the only one that felt like there's more substance to it, right? Like on the Raw portion.
Yeah. I mean, so many guys, like you said, we thought, man, there's potential if they want to do something, but just doing that Raw portion of the roster really shows there are so many people that it's like, how do you have all of these people stay relevant? And the answer is you can't.
It's difficult, and I don't think the solution is a 4-hour show. Like, if there's anything that I can reflect as a wrestling fan myself, it's just because you have more doesn't mean you have a better show. Just because you have a ginormous roster for a 3-hour show doesn't mean it's good. Like, reduce the show to 2 hours and cut the roster down by like 20%, honestly, and really focus on developing one narrowing story, like one, a fluid story. So everybody listening, we would love to get your feedback. Do you think that WWE's roster, especially for the Raw portion, including 205 Live, because they do wrestle there, is this too extensive? Like, what would your solution for Raw be? And also, like, what's your hype level for us covering the SmackDown Live roster next week? Let us know either on the comments on the YouTube section. You can follow us on Twitter, ByteThatCast, or send us an email to bytethatcast@gmail.com. Now, we don't have a questions portion for this week's podcast, but we are going to get to the Byte That weekly update because we actually have something pretty cool and very, very significant happening this Sunday.
Yes, so this Sunday we're going to be doing our Byte That Patreon private show, so look for that. If you are a gold patron, you will have access to that private show. That'll be this Sunday at 1 p.m. It's going to be a very important discussion that we're going to have with our gold patrons, and we're definitely looking forward to that. If you want to see the matches that, if you saw our top 5 HBK Dream matches, which is up on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/ByteThatCast, you can check that video out along with a few of the matches that Juan and Keith simulated and did commentary over. So all that is up there on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/ByteThatCast. As we mentioned, we have our Patreon, patreon.com/bytethat. You can head over there to check out the details if you want to go and support us. And if you want to help this podcast out, you can leave us a review on either iTunes / Apple Podcasts or over on Stitcher. Leaving a review definitely helps this show get seen more. So if you want to go and do that, we really appreciate it. So thank you guys for tuning into this unique edition of the Byte That podcast. And we'll see you next week.